Hello, I am Master Yao, founder of the Grand Trine System. This is episode 2 in the series Royalty and Alchemy. In episode 1, we talked about the definition of royalty, that it is a marker on the DNA, histine spool, that helps to bring certain attributes forward and push other attributes back. And that, unlike most of the DNA markers that cause epigenetics, it's a positive thing versus most of them are negative. So we're moving closer to understanding how humans attach these markers to the DNA so that they start to obtain a vibration. And it can best be described as an elevation. In other words, it's a vibration that elevates what you're doing, who you are, and helps you in many different ways. We also talked about the fact that many people have been royal in the past, especially in past lives, and they don't know that they are bringing this spark, this vibration, into this life. There is a secret to this when we talk about the fact that royalty is created from alchemy. And most people associate alchemy with magic, with metaphysics, and that may be correct. But we're not talking about something that's not obtainable. In fact, we're basically saying now that through alchemy, through an alchemical process, it's possible to create this royal vibration. And if you've already had some contact with it, if you've already had some development along those lines, it is possible to revive it. And we want to talk about some of the secrets associated with that tonight. So for a time, some of the higher secrets of alchemy were hidden in the Grand Trine curriculums. They were hidden sort of from me in a way, because we were kind of working with things and working around it, but some of the core catalysts of alchemy were still hidden from us. And then we eventually uncovered them. And I want to talk about the fact that of how we did that. In other words, we looked at the catalytic process that gave other things this property of elevation, of elevating us in a way that seemed unusual, that did not seem to follow the laws of, chemistry and physics. So our first task in this episode is to make a distinction. And that is, what I discovered is that some people aspire to royalty. Other people aspire to celebrity. There's a difference. So when we're talking about this celebrity and royalty, the first thing we notice is that there are people in the world who are driven to set themselves apart from common people. They want to be distinct. Then the second thing that we notice is that that's missing in the people who are seeking celebrity. The people who are seeking royalty are trying to reattach to it, are also concerned about community, development of community. And I believe they are interested in community because in the past, they were used to having followers. They need followers. And when they were royal, when they were moving in that vibration, they had people to follow them to help them make things happen. And they want to obtain that again. The third thing I noticed about people help us try to determine which people are royal and which one are not is this drive to reconnect to that royal vibration in this life, to reconnect. This drive to awaken something inside of them that elevated them. This drive to find these catalysts. Celebrity is lacking in what I consider to be true elevation. In the celebrity situation, you are elevated, but only as long as the crowd is there. So I would say it's dependent on outer factors. The celebrity feeds off the crowd. However, the royal is transforming the crowd. One is feeding off the crowd, the other is pushing something out into the crowd. Once the crowd leaves the celebrity has nothing. But once the royal leaves the crowd has nothing. Understand, people like Martin Luther King did not feed off the crowd. The crowd was transformed by them. They gave the crowd something. It's a difference. What is this catalyst? And I search through the archives of the arcane sciences and the old manuscripts of the alchemist and whatever to try to determine what is this philosopher's stone? What is this catalyst? And I started at some point in time to look at how this shows up, how this catalytic action that seems to be alchemical, that seems to be magical, how it shows up in the world. And there were some common themes, some common denominators that I discovered. So let's look at my books, The House of the Man, Awakening the Master Feminine, Awakening the Master Masculine. We talk about the houses of the woman, the houses of the man, and bringing these houses online into our spirit, into our current persona. And it's a tough process to some extent. I mean, it takes some time and it takes some effort. And usually it's something that person has to do. But from time to time, we've had people around Grand Trine who seem to be able, through an alchemical process, of helping people bring these things online in their spirit without the normal level of effort, without the time that normally you have to expend. They seem to be able to go through a process and get these attributes, these archetypes online without using the normal method. It's a catalytic process. It's an alchemical process. I found out about the Archangel Barachiel, who is the Archangel of fortune, of blessings. Some people would say, it's the Archangel of money. And when I studied this, I studied so many things. I'm looking at, okay, is this BS or not? Is this really going to help something? How do I bring this attribute within myself or within the things that I'm selling? And one of the things that I did was I took the signature or the sigil of the archangel, and I took a part of that sigil and I imprinted it or embossed it on my books or other things that were important to me. In other words, I took the angel symbols that represented the archangel of good fortune and I encoded them on the covers or inside the text so that almost you did not see them, but they were there. And what happened is that sales increased. And since 2008, when I first started selling those books, not a week has passed that they haven't sold. I can say that the creation of a sigil inside the book seemed to uh, invest the book with an alchemical property that seems to cause it to sell, even when, I'm not making that much of an effort. Another example is when we were working with the spiraling paradigm in the Tree of Life. So the Tree of Life is this very complicated, very difficult series of initiations that you do to bring the different deities online. And again, we discovered that was like an alchemical process involving the different cycles of the moon and certain things that you do. Uh, uh, Part of that is called the grand concordance, that helps you to get this thing going. And that when we were able to get people to adhere to the protocol, yes, they were able to finish the initiations quicker. There was like an elevation taking place, that it was more than just the effort that the people were putting into the initiations. It was catalytic. And I said to myself, we can do it the long way, but in the royalty environment, in the royalty vibration, something is happening to cause these things to be elevated and to cause them to happen faster than they normally should. I'm reminded of the fable or the folklore of the golden goose that lays the golden egg. And you say to yourself, okay, we've got a goose that's laying golden eggs. What are we talking about here? What's going on here? Well, it's definitely a metaphor for an alchemical process. And, when I looked at some of these old fables and folklore and whatever, we see some common themes in some of them that left to normal things, left to its own devices, left to uh, the regular course of events, the people involved came upon ruin. But once they instilled a certain particular catalyst into the equation, magic, if you will, the goose started laying golden eggs. Let me take it let's look at it a little different. People make something called gold oramus. It's a food, and there's actual gold fibers in it. I've eaten it, and what I noticed was that it's not like regular food. It doesn't have much taste to it, but it does feel good when you eat it. And what I noticed was that I didn't have to eat a lot of regular food, and I felt invigorated. I felt almost intoxicated. It seemed like it changed me, and I was just like, wow. So there's food that you can eat that makes the other food that you eat better, that 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 instills you with a sense of elevation, that changes you, that for weeks after you eat it, something has happened to you, a process that would seem magical, that would seem like this shouldn't be happening just from eating this little stuff, because its components are pretty much regular components, except for the gold. I had testimony from some women who, some females are very turned off by swallowing semen, but in some cases, they go to great lengths to swallow semen. And why do these women do that? The men Excuse me. Excuse me again. When we were doing the semen retention programs, some of the men discovered that in the midst of doing semen retention, that they could pull the semen up, out, and into the second dantian, and it would come into flow into their heart, and it would partially vaporize, the semen would, and then it would distill back and flow back down and become a liquid again where it's stored. And when they did this, that's when women wanted to swallow their semen. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it's like through semen retention and semen distillation, the semen was catalytically changed so that the semen became a catalyst, like the gold oramus, so that when women swallowed it, it changed their skin, it changed their hair, it changed something about them so that they sorted out. And it had a catalytic effect, a euphoric effect. And so, women are swallowing semen all the time, I guess, around the world. But a few women who were seeking out this experience, where it's not because of the sexual context at all. They were seeking it out because it elevated them in a way they couldn't explain. Because the semen had been distilled, and there was like elemental process involved. You have women, we went through a period where we were giving women what we called, we're trying to take them to high-level orgasm. So let me just add, so the men who were emitting this semen that had this catalytic property to it, they were having the high-level orgasm experience right before they ejaculated that semen. So let me put that in there. Same thing. We were taking women through these experiences where they were having throat ejaculations, and they were right on the cusp of going into high-level orgasm. And when they did go into high-level orgasm, the throat orgasms changed, and they started emitting an elixir out of their mouth that turned eventually, after 2 or 3 times, into like a whipped cream texture. And the men ate that. And it had a euphoric, doesn't have much taste, but it's after about 15 minutes after eating it, you feel euphoria and you feel energy like just coming all through you, and you know something has happened. You consume something, but it's almost like something inside of you started changing you, every cell in your body. And it had an effect on you way beyond what it should have. It was catalytic. What I'm trying to get to is that certain things, certain processes that we go through are similar to royalty in that there seems to be almost a magic involved in changing the process so that it has supernatural ability, supernatural attributes that it imparts to the person going through it. And I felt that within the secret of these catalysts was the secret to royalty. There's something called the 5 euphorics, right? I believe they're chocolate, coffee, tobacco, certain types of liqueurs and things. And when I talk about these liqueurs, they're liquid things that you drink. They're alcoholic in that they contain alcohol, but they're all fermented in the presence of plant spirits. So you can use fruits or plants to put inside and make the liquid have these qualities, right? You start out with water, but you end up with a spirit, and it's a fermentation process. Normally you use some yeast in there, but it has to be done in the presence of a plant spirit, not a plant, but the plant spirit. There's a little bit of a trick to it. I mean, some people have heard of bitters. That's one thing that people have made this stuff out of many different things. But my mother used to make it out of dandelion wine, out of dandelions and raisins and certain types of oranges. I've had people make it out of blueberries. I don't want to take time going through the whole thing, but mead, ancient mead, was supposedly made through a process like this, with with honey, and there are other types of things where they ferment them and they make this beverage. Um, I made a batch of it one time, and I gave my girlfriend some, and she just she, she became intoxicated. Now she can drink. She could at that time sit down and drink quite a bit and not really get that intoxicated. She had just like a half a, you know, of a small goblet, and she was just laughing and having fun and just, and it made me feel kind of giddy too. But you could feel the plant spirit inside the beverage, and its effect did not stop when you finished drinking. The effect stayed with you for days. It elevated you. And it's like it put you in a place where you're not normal. Something alchemical is trying to happen to you because there's something special that the humans do when they do it, and there's something special that the plant spirits do when they're making when the liquid is going through this fermentation process. In other words, you know, we talk about these things and how people use them in different ways. So you can make cigarettes out of tobacco, you can make cigars out of tobacco, and they've been trying to do certain things to the cigars, especially in Cuba before, back in the 1930s, 1940s. They used to do all of these things to the tobacco to try to give it special properties, but they were missing one component, the human component. And what happened by accident one time is that one of these little plantations or whatever, they ran out of the boards that the women roll the cigars on. So the women started rolling the cigars on their lap, right, on the bare skin. So um, all of a sudden, sales of those particular cigars, the whole brand, started shooting up. But people started saying that some of these cigars were different from other cigars of the same brand, and it was traced to this place where the women were rolling the cigars on their lap. So, of course, they took advantage of it, and they started saying our cigars are made on the laps of virgins. It was kind of a funny thing, but what they stumbled onto was the fact that when that human component is in there, those euphorics can exhibit special catalytic properties. When you have this elemental thing going on, and when you have this human thing going on where you're doing something almost ritualistic, where you're doing something that um, it's alchemical, a change occurs that can't be accounted for. And some of these things are minor and some are not so minor. But it's like when we talk about royalty, we're talking about something where there's an element there, there's an attribute there that's extraordinary that normally we can't explain why it's there. And when people become royal, they're exhibiting this quality, this elevation. And when we go back and look at history and we look at the testimonials, that person for a long time was like a normal person. And all of a sudden, something happened. There was some kind of a catalytic thing going on. and they became a little bit extraordinary. When we are getting closer to the secret of royalty, we look at something we call the 7-star system, which is a very ancient and venerable system. And so in the 7-star system, it talks about the 4 main variables of life, which are money, sex, relationship, and tribe. And the 7-star system talks about how to reach the highest outcome in each of these variables. And I noticed that people who are seeking celebrity and people who are seeking royalty, trying to reconnect with it, they approach these variables in different ways, and they use their good fortune in different ways. So what I noticed is that people with a touch of royalty are using money differently than celebrity is using money. So, one of the values of money is its purchasing power. But another value of money is how it can be used to influence people. Celebrities always value money based on what they can buy with it. And they're constantly spending more to show that they're celebrities. Royals, on the other hand, are always first using money to influence people. And a lot of times they don't even have to buy that much, because people are giving them things or allowing them to access things without money. And we see this in sex when we in trying to reach high-level orgasm. We see this in so many things, that this catalytic action, this vibration of royalty, adds a component to something that normally shouldn't be there. That there is definitely a way that royals move and celebrities don't move that way, and other common people don't move that way. And we're looking for this secret to this vibration. We're looking to this, why is this good fortune coming? Why do certain things just happen for them that don't happen for people in the exact same class and category? So we're going to continue our journey. We're going to stop here for the time being, let you ponder on some of the things we've said. We're going to have more of these conversations. We're going to bring some other people in to have discussions about some of this stuff. Again, I went on this journey of trying to determine what is this alchemical process that allowed the ancients to create people who were considered royal, people who naturally just became leaders, people who became influencers, people who became famous but not celebrities. And they added something to society. They gave back something. It's an interesting idea when you contemplate the fact that a lot of people become rich, a lot of people become celebrities, but nothing changes in their DNA. Why do some people who all go through a similar alchemical process, why does their DNA change, or the markers on their DNA change? I leave you with that question, but we're going to keep moving forward in this discussion until we get to some answers. I want to thank all of you for listening, for supporting my channel, and I want you to make sure you leave comments. Share the links to my channel with your networks and your friends, please. Hit the notification button and all that kind of stuff like that, the like button, whatever. And I wish all of you good fortune. Thank you.